Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our operating budget discussions, where we're going to be talking about a number of different issues related to our education and culture committee budget. I really want to thank our staff, who's done an amazing job of really getting us prepared for what it is that we know is incredibly important when it comes to being responsive to the needs of our overall community. These past few years have been difficult. They've been challenging, but they've also been inspirational in terms of what it is that we expect to see from county government and from our partners, which is innovation. But more importantly than the innovation is commitment, because commitment drives innovation, a commitment to make sure that our education system remains one of the best, not only in this region, but in the nation. And then one that speaks to the needs of our children that continue to change. One of the interesting things that I want to make very clear is that even though, and there's been so much talk around what the pandemic has done, the reality is that our children are changing more than just because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. There is so much that's happening that surrounds our children each and every day, and we talk about it when it comes to the need for social and emotional learning support, exacerbated by all things like the war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine, the climate change uncertainty, the rise of social media, and what that means for folks when it comes to their own just impressions of themselves and how they see themselves, body image. One of our council member for a day winners talked about body image and the pressures, especially when it comes to young women, of what it is that they need to look like and how they need to be. All of these things are unrelated to COVID. They have nothing to do with COVID-19 and have huge impacts on our children's well-being. And then when you talk about all these other things, they also have impacts on our economic development, our workforce, where things are going in terms of where people should focus their efforts if they care about their communities. There is so much that is there that we can't just rest it all on the laurels of COVID. And we have to be responsive as we have been in the past. So I want to be very clear that while folks are looking for a post-pandemic budget, the reality is that this is a budget that should reflect where we see our society going, where we see our community going, and meeting the needs of those individual students from that respect. I think that is a budget that is going to have to make sure that we can really focus on how we meet the needs of our students and ensure that their success will continue like we have seen in the past when it comes to Montgomery County Public Schools. So I'll stop there. I know that some of my colleagues have hard stops, so I want to make sure that we get time in to do and are able to discuss all of the myriad of issues. This will not be our last discussion with Montgomery County Public Schools. Let me just make that clear at the onset. There are continuing moving pieces that we know are going to affect our ability to be able to try and meet the board's request of a fully funded Montgomery County Public Schools budget. I've had numerous conversations with both Ms. Wolf, President of the Board of Education, as well as Superintendent McKnight, to talk about the needs of the system, why a fully funded budget is important, what it ties to in terms of the values of our system, and what they're looking to do to meet the needs of our students, as well as our teachers and staff that are in the school as well, who need to be supported also. That's incredibly important. So all of that is there. But let me turn to my colleagues very quickly. I want to turn to Councilmember Navarro and then Councilmember Giovanna for any opening remarks. Then I'm going to turn it to President Wolf and then Dr. McKnight, and then we'll go through some quick introductions and get right into budget. So Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to this extraordinary team. It is, I think, always important to pause, even if it's for just a few seconds, to reflect on what everyone has had to deal with, what all of you have had to do to lead our extraordinary school system, what students have gone through, what parents have gone through, what teachers, paraeducators, support service personnel, administrators, everyone really came together and under such extraordinarily difficult circumstances to continue to provide everything needed for our students and our families. I also want to be mindful that it is important to recognize that this has been really unprecedented in terms of its effects, that even though before the pandemic, all of us continue to do everything possible to address many of those challenges that affect so many of our students, given especially who we are in Montgomery County and in our school systems demographics. But the reality is, and the truth of the matter is, and we can't sugarcoat it, that the pandemic has just truly exacerbated and, in my opinion, shifted a lot of those challenges and perhaps created some additional ones. And so I want to say that, it's going to take a lot of innovation. It's going to take a lot of willingness to think laterally instead of just linear. It's going to take a lot of courage to decide that perhaps there are particular interventions or models that may not serve us anymore, but that we need to make way for those who actually meet this moment. And I can say that this will be my last budget on the county council. I can say that as I leave, I know I will feel satisfied with the fact and have the trust that this is a team that can meet this challenge head on and can really use this as an opportunity to actually take the school system to an absolute new level that meets the needs of all students and meets the needs, of course, of this county in general. We know the school system has always been our jewel. And so now I think, again, it's a time to take advantage of opportunities to regroup, to rethink, to realign, to reimagine, and hopefully, we can pretty soon take a look back and say, that's what happened. Absolutely, we did not let this crisis go to waste. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. I obviously, do support what has been sent over, but of course would like to hear from all of you in terms of how this aligns with this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. Councilmember Giwando.
Thank you, Chair Rice, and good to be with everybody. Good morning. Appreciate always all the work that everyone is doing. I think that's an important point, Councilmember Navarro. I was looking at I got Facebook sends you a reminder, and I got a reminder yesterday of 2 years ago. We had our first mass food distribution at the White Oak Rec Center. It was 2 years ago yesterday, and I had no hair, and we were out there running around, and I just, including some of the MCPS employees, and it just reminds me of just how much we've gone through, and how deep and wide it is. So we didn't do everything right. No one did, but we worked hard, and we tried to keep students and families forefront, and that's what I appreciate about. I know we'll get into the budget details. That's what you've tried to do here, in recognizing, and though it's an unprecedented increase in requests, we're in an unprecedented time where we need to respond to so many different things. So we're going to go through all of that, but I just wanted to say also I appreciate everyone's work, and I look forward to working through this over the next several weeks. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Giwando. And before I turn to President Wolf, I just wanted to make sure that we introduced everybody that's here with us today. So we have President Wolf, who's the president of the Board of Education, Dr. Monetha McKnight, our superintendent of Montgomery County Public Schools, Dr. Jeannie Dawson, our chief of Office of Finance and Operations, Rob Riley, associate superintendent from the Office of Finance, Thomas Klausing, executive director of finance for MCPS, Yvonne Alfonso Windsor, supervisor of the budget unit, MCPS, Rich Harris from our Office of Management and Budget, who is our fiscal and policy analyst. We have Mr. Jimmy DeAndrea, Chief of Staff with MCPS, Ms. Dana Edwards, Chief of District-Wide Services and Supports with MCPS, Dr. Helen Nixon, Chief of Human Resources and Development, Ms. Rochelle Rubin, Chief of Teaching, Learning, and Supports, Ms. Stephanie Sharon, who is the Chief of Strategic Initiatives, and Ms. Stephanie Williams, General Counsel, all with Montgomery County Public Schools. we've got a lot of folks. So we should be able to answer any question that we come up with. And with that, let me turn to not only a great leader when it comes to our Board of Education, but also a passionate person who really cares about the education of every child, and that is the president of the Board of Education, Ms. Brenda Wolf. Ms. Wolf.
Thank you, Chairman Rice. Good morning, and good morning to Council members Navarro and Jawando. First, I want to start out by thanking you for the kind words and recognizing the hard work that our staff has done over the 2 years. I also want to thank you for the collaboration that the Council has shown to MCPS during this difficult time. And thank you for the opportunity to discuss with you the fiscal 2023 operating budget for Montgomery County Public Schools. The budget that the Board of Education has tentatively adopted on February the 24th, 2022 totals $2.962 billion and reflects a $179.6 million increase, or 6.5% in spending for MCPS compared to the current FY22 operating budget. This budget is the result of internal and external feedback, along with extensive analysis of our programs and outcomes. The FY23 budget request ensures that students and staff have the necessary resources to learn and teach as we continue to respond to this impact of the pandemic. The budget includes investments in mental health support, enhancing safety and security, and in the foundational academic skills of literacy and mathematics. The top priority of this budget is maintaining the high levels of achievement for our students, and at the same time, eliminating those opportunity gaps that most heavily impact our Black and Brown students, our English language learners, and our students who receive individualized education program services. The board looks forward to working with you in the coming weeks and months to fund the FY23 operating budget for MCPS so that we can meet the needs of all of our students. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. McKnight to share with you more details of the budget. And again, I thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, President Wolf. Good morning, Chairman Rice, Ms. Navarro, Mr. Jawando. It's so good to be here with you today and discussing the operating budget for MCPS. I have some lengthy comments because I do feel like it's going to be really important before we get into a discussion to break down some of the specifics about our budget, so that we are, one, being very transparent about it, but we also have a very deep understanding of how this budget has been designed to support the very things that you mentioned in your opening comments in light of the needs in the school system. When the board unanimously voted to tentatively adopt the budget on February 24th in 2022, I described it as an extraordinary budget for extraordinary times. And we continue to this day, although we're facing now coming out of COVID-19 over 2 years, this week, last week, throughout the past 2 years, we continue to see the impact that the pandemic has had on our children and on our staff. And as we go through and talk about the budget, I just want to highlight how important it is for us to recognize that this is a challenge that we've managed in the school system for over 2 years. So we have to plan for the amount of time that it's going to take for everyone to recover from the impact in so many different ways. And this budget really gets into the specifics of what we're doing now to address that, and then how we also have to plan for the future. With this budget request, it's really focused on 3 priority areas that I've communicated with our community, that our Board of Education has said fit into our strategic plan. And those areas are, number one, rebuilding trust within our community so that we can continue to build community as we navigate uncharted territory. That's really important. When we're going through a process for the very first time, as we've had in light of a number of things of managing COVID-19. Rebuilding community has to be at the core of that. The second is to be able to respond to the social emotional well-being, mental health, and safety and security concerns of our students and our staff. And then the third is very clear, focusing on teaching and learning, which is the purpose of our school system and the power of our school system, and in recognizing that we still have to make sure we have transformative practices in place impacting our children and really impacting their learning so that they can be successful regardless of race, gender, zip code, language, some of the barriers that we've seen in data over time that impedes the success of our children. And so when we think about those three core priority areas, as we go through and talk about the budget priorities, I will make sure I align them to those three priority areas that the Board of Education and myself deem is very important in terms of next steps for the school system. The driving factors in preparing our budget have been to maintain successful practices that we've had in MCPS that have led us to strong student achievement in many areas, and then also investing in new strategies that we know are going to be really important to embrace innovation in a way to address gaps in the way that we have not in the school system prior to the pandemic, and then now even more as a result of the pandemic. For many of those students who were not successful before the pandemic, but even more have had gaps widen as a result of it. This budget request focuses on schools, classrooms, students, and the teachers and other employees that support teaching and learning. And I want to summarize for you a few examples of what some of those key investments are in this FY23 operating budget. The budget ensures that we have a full-time reading specialist in every single one of our 136 elementary schools. We've talked a lot about the foundation of reading and the importance of that, particularly in our early learners. While we've also looked at data from the last 2 years that really pointed out to us the foundational skills that our early learners normally receive in grades, kindergarten, first, second, and third grades were really impacted over the past 2 years. So we know that the reading specialist position in every single one of our elementary schools full-time is going to help us move in the right direction to correct that and move even forward in our effort to improve literacy. We're directing resources to ensure that every one of our 210 schools receive a full-time staff development teacher. That is a key leverage point that we have seen over and over again in MCPS and used wisely within our schools, is a great leverage point to provide that support that is needed for teachers to be able to know how to differentiate that learning so that it is one that's meaningful and making an impact on every student in their classroom. The budget includes resources to establish a welcome center that will help ensure that our new students and their families are welcomed into Montgomery County and into MCPS and receive the services that they need so that they can begin their journey in MCPS, and doing that in a more seamless way and supportive way. We're expanding pre-kindergarten access for 3- and 4-year-olds, including full-day classes consistent with what the requirements are and what is outlined in the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation. We've also included positions like security rovers and other staff to enhance safety in our schools and to promote the well-being of our students and staff. And this has been to address the core purpose of establishing safety routines from elementary to our high schools with a focus on relationship building. We've realigned funding to support the science of reading curriculum to advance literacy across our district in all of our schools that we identify as needing a focus on literacy. We are increasing the number of community schools from 19 schools to 26 schools in our next fiscal year. We're funding a new human capital management system that is going to support the transition from paper processes to a digital 21st century system, allowing for more time for teaching and less time for paperwork. I had a former employee tell me that they had a parent who worked in the system who some of these systems still remain from the 70s. And when we think about the use of time, all of these components are really important when we think about the time that our teachers are using, that our central staff is using, and how can we come up to 21st century operating procedures that allow us to be more productive. We're consistent with the blueprint legislation and the budget adds funding for salary increases for national board certified teachers in classrooms and in low performing schools. And this moves us closer to the $60,000 starting teacher salary requirement that we're expected to have in place by 2026. And lastly, I want to say the largest component of our budget within this year is to provide that increase in salaries and benefits as we strive to maintain a competitive compensation for our employees who have shown tremendous dedication during this pandemic. Our school system has very talented and dedicated employees who make MCPS a sought-after school system. And even with the challenges, I am proud to say that we are still a sought-after school system. But we have to be able to maintain that and monitor the competition that's happening across the nation, particularly at a time in which everyone's struggling to fill positions and have been impacted by the workforce generally by some of the woes that came along with the pandemic. So when we think about the budget, our operation budget really does represent a strong foundation for the school system. The pandemic has definitely had a large impact on our school system in ways that we could not have imagined, but we have to rethink our foundation and how we operate and do our work as a school system. And then we also have to do exactly what all of you said in your comments earlier, which is we have to rebuild through a lens of innovation. And this is where our ESSER funding comes in. And I really want to focus in on that for just a moment, because although many have asked, you have such a large operating budget request. I just went through all of the things that represent a foundation that has to exist within the school system. That's what you see in the operating budget request. But this whole rebuilding part and thinking about how we innovate and rebuild MCPS for the future, that the pandemic in some ways pushed us into ways that we needed to consider before, but now we're here and we embrace that opportunity. This is where the ESSER funding comes in. And we're very fortunate that the federal government has provided us with what I refer to as the relief funding, because that was the purpose of ESSER, to acknowledge the challenges of COVID-19 and to provide relief for school systems. And for us to be able to respond to the pandemic and its impact on teaching and learning, mitigating learning loss, for well-being supports, and for keeping our buildings safe. And so I'm going to talk about ESSER for just a moment so that we can be very clear about how that money really is, one, temporary, and has been used in the space for innovation and rebuilding. So through the elementary and secondary school emergency relief funding, which we refer to as ESSER, MCPS has received $389.2 million in 3 separate installments from the federal government. And I mentioned the 3 separate installments because when it comes in 3 different installments, the ending of those installments come at different times. And so it's not just one pot that exists at the same time. We also received additional federal funding in the amount of $35.9 million. And that was used to provide before and after tutoring for our students, as well as purchasing Chromebooks for students and laptops for teachers. It was also used to obtain Wi-Fi devices to ensure equity of access to internet for all of our students as we embrace the challenge of recognizing that we just couldn't provide the technology to students, but we also had to make sure they had access to be able to utilize that technology from spaces away from our school buildings. From ESSER 1, which is available until September 30th, 2022. So that's this year, this grant funding opportunity will end. We received $24.8 million and have expended all but $4.5 million of this amount. The vast majority of this funding has been used to purchase Chromebooks and laptops, as we had to quickly provide a device for each individual to support distance learning in our schools, especially at the time in which our schools were not open and we had to resort to a virtual online platform. We also received a total of $112.2 million in ESSER 2. That funding was available and is available for us until September 30th of 2023. More than half of that money has been expended. $48.3 million will be expended in the next year and a half. ESSER 2 funding has been used for tutoring of students to mitigate learning loss, for providing and expanding the summer school program in 2021 at no cost for our students. And that included many more programs than we've ever held in the past. And it also included a record enrollment of students that we've ever had in a summer school program. ESSER II funding also went to supporting professional development for our teachers and staff and the technology needs of the system that had to be upgraded and enhanced to be able to support all of the virtual needs that came along with those changes of virtual opportunities available to our students and staff. And then finally, ESSER III, and this represents the largest of the ESSER grant that was provided to us, is a total of $252.2 million. And I'll point out that the state initially released 2/3 or $168 million of this funding as the statewide ESSER plan that must be approved by the United States Department of Education before the final third is made available to us. Of the $168 million received to date, we have spent $44 million and have plans for the use of this funding through its end date of September 30th, 2024. Among the many uses of ESSER III funding are the Montgomery Virtual Academy, which supports right now approximately 3,000 students who are still learning from home. Compensatory services for our special education students, mental health supports for students and staff, and resources for plant operations, maintenance, including water bottle filling stations in schools. And these are just a few of many examples that I'll call out for ESSER III particularly. Even as I mentioned, Montgomery Virtual Academy that has been in place for us to still provide a virtual environment for our students. We now know that we will need to extend this virtual opportunity so that we can provide more opportunities for our students to take advantage of courses and programs that in the past have been limited through capacity of a brick and mortar situation in terms of what we can provide at certain schools. So ESSER is going to allow us an opportunity to expand that. Again, a space of innovation. So as I speak about innovation, I'll also call out a few other components resulting as a part of the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation. In that blueprint, the governor's FY23 state budget included $38.8 million for MCPS. And this was an increase of $7.5 million compared to the blueprint funding we received in FY22 budget. MCPS's funding for this legislation for FY23 is $250 per student, whereas the statewide average that Maryland school districts received was $553 per student. So I wanted to call out that difference because I think that's important for us to understand as it relates to how Montgomery County differs in some cases from other districts. With all of that said, I do want to say we are extremely grateful to the county executive in his support for the overall support for the budget that we sent over to him that did include all of the requests for MCPS. But we are concerned about two areas that came in that recommendation. In the recommendation, it was shared that MCPS should save an additional $20 million in this year's budget to fund next year's budget. We already had planned to save $25 million from the current FY22 budget to fund the FY23 budget. But using $45 million of savings in the current budget to fund next year's budget would be the most savings requested in the recent memory of MCPS. And so that is significant. To find $20 million more in savings in the last 3 months of the current fiscal year would be extremely challenging, given our continuing recovery of the pandemic and its impact on teaching and learning. The county executive suggests that our ESSER funding could be a way to come up with the savings, but to do that means we would have to eliminate important items in ESSER to support that $20 million in savings. And that's why I spent the time to go through and give just some examples of what some of that funding in ESSER is going to be used for. The second recommendation that came was to reduce our 23 budget request by $30 million that is included for our employee benefits program and trust fund. Our healthcare consultants confirmed that we anticipate an increase in utilization due to COVID, but the increase was more than expected. It was recommended, indicated that the county's reserves are available to help cover any loss in our trust fund. Reducing our health benefits budget request by 30 million means we will be in a projected deficit sometime in FY23. Good accounting practice and the county's reserve policy call for maintaining a sufficient reserve to ensure that the trust fund can meet unpredictable monthly expenditure requirements. And I just wanted to be clear about that because I wanted you to understand how some of those recommendations would impact the budget. So now that I've shared some of the priorities that we've outlined in ESSER, how the foundation of our request represents those core values that we want to see to address issues currently in our school system and also building for the future, I want to say I look forward to working with each of you as county council members of the Education Culture Committee to complete the FY23 operation budget that really is focused on meeting the needs of our students in MCPS, because they are indeed the focus of some of the work that we have to do to address the challenges, but also what a great opportunity to innovate and make the school system return to one that is focused on meeting the needs of the students, which is what they deserve and our community deserves. So with that said, I'm here with the staff and we are prepared to address any questions or participate in further discussion about the FY23 operating budget. And thank you for the time to share these comments with you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. McKnight. And I did want to acknowledge that President Wolf unfortunately had a Maryland Association of School Boards meeting that she had to drop off and go on to. So we appreciate her being here. And I appreciate your comments, Dr. McKnight. And couldn't agree with you more. Look, one of the things that we know is that we're trying to build an even better system that's going to be responsive. And I really appreciate you highlighting some of the specifics that are there. I remember, and Councilmember Navarro will remember this as well, we used to oftentimes get criticized for not going into great detail in terms of the Montgomery County Public School System budget. When I first arrived on the council, it was kind of pro forma and was something partly because we've got a great relationship, but also everyone knew and expected our school system was firing on all cylinders. And what's happened is there's been more scrutiny and there's been more ask and there's been more need. Which isn't a bad thing. It's great for folks to see where their money is going and how their investment is being put forth and the strategies that the school system is employing to make sure that we're addressing those needs. And I really appreciate you highlighting some of those, including what we have heard for a very long time when it comes to reading specialists and making sure that we have one of those at every single one of our elementary schools. That is a big deal. And I hope that for the folks that are watching at home, they can take that message and make sure that they tell folks that there are things that are in this budget that truly are there to address what we saw before, right? And so it's one of those things where, again, while we know that COVID made it tougher for so many things to happen, a lot of the things that you're doing are building upon what your initiatives have always been in terms of building equity and access for every single one of those children coming through the doors of Montgomery County Public Schools. That is important. That will not change because what I don't want is for folks to then criticize by saying, well, COVID's not here anymore, so therefore we don't need to do all that stuff that we were doing during COVID. The reality is that what we saw from COVID is that we could do things a little bit differently to try and address some of the needs that we saw. We had to do things differently because we couldn't deliver in the same way we had been doing before, which gave us some innovative ways to try and approach meeting the needs of some of our students. So all of that goes into what Councilmember Navarro was talking about, which is building that better system that we come out of in terms of really making sure that folks see that we've got a system, and I'm going to continue to use this word because I really like it, but future-proofing, and really something that creates a system that is more resilient than it has been before, so that the next time we have something, and it doesn't have to be a global pandemic, but we are ready and we are prepared and have a system that can weather the storm. That is what we want. And so that does cost money. We understand. I did just want to close by saying, before I turn it over to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez and to Ms. McGuire, and I really thank them for an incredible packet. And we'll go through, colleagues, this packet in order. I will pause at the end of each section because it's so detailed and because there's so much to it, and because I know we have time constraints. I want to make sure that people have an opportunity to ask questions and make comments on each individual section. So I won't make you hold your comments beyond sections at this point. I feel it's really important for us to engage in this conversation. But I will just say that what the county executive sent us is still an increase. It is recognizing that we need to go above where we were before. And so I just want to highlight that for folks, again, that are watching, to understand that even if we are not able to meet the exact number that the school board has requested, the reality is that we're still increasing over what we did before. We're just trying to figure out how much of an increase we can afford. This is quite honestly not something where I think that there's a lot of question or consternation around great programs that we know can do great things. I would just highlight that what Councilmember Navarro also said is incredibly important. If we do realize that there are things that are shifting that we may not need any longer or may not be as effective, or there's a different way to do them, that's also ways in which we can help to identify shifting resources instead of building on something that may not be as effective as it used to be before. So those are always things that we're looking at as well, which is why doing this in multiple sort of settings gives us the opportunity to kind of go through this and think through some of the decision points that we have. And then on April 29th, the potential for us to come back and then start making some final recommendations based on the discussion that we've had today. So with that being said, and kind of laying out the process, I just want to again remind my colleagues, after each individual section, I will pause, see if folks have questions, comments. We'll try and get through the entire packet. I think we should be able to, but if not, we do have additional meetings that are set. I don't want to short shrift anyone when it comes to being able to go through this and have your comments or questions heard or answered. So with that, let me turn to Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez and to Ms. McGuire.
Mr. Chairman, can I have a question?
Oh, yes.
I texted you, yeah. And perhaps this will be discussed, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, maybe you can tell me that. I wanted to understand a little bit more about when Superintendent McKnight was giving her remarks, describing some of the highlights, and she spoke about community schools, this new concept of the wellness center. So I wanted to understand a little bit more how that fits in with the notion of course, additional mental health and emotional supports. Also, dual language programs, where does that fit in? Bilingual staff, which has been something that I know has been an issue that a lot of folks in the Latino community have constantly brought up. And how does all of this, connect with the concept of community schools? Also, the latest report on school readiness, I know, has a very, very startling effect and has affected especially our Latino and our Black young students, and how are we addressing that? So if that's going to be discussed as we go, that's fine, but if not, I just wanted to understand a little bit more those components and how they are all working together to to respond to a lot of these very important challenges.
So Councilmember Navarro, that'll be on page 15 of the packet. So we do have that in terms of
all of those things.
Sure, adjustments.
Okay.
Yep, where it talks about community schools, and it talks about well-being, all of those kinds of things. So we will get to that, I promise.
Cool.
Yep.
Great, thank you.
And Councilmember Navarro, just to also mention that we do have an April 22nd Ec Hhs meeting where we've focused on those pieces you've mentioned, because we know they are such large priorities for the council. We have discussion on mental health, on cultural competency, on the school services provided, the wellness centers as well. So while this meeting will provide an overview, and we can definitely talk about those pieces more here with the wonderful MCPS team that we have with us, they will also be brought to the joint committee on Friday.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Ms. Rodriguez. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone. I'm happy to be here today to discuss the MCPS FY23 operating budget request and the county executive's recommendation for their FY23 operating budget request. I want to start first by thanking the amazing MCPS and OMB staff who's here today, who has been extraordinarily collaborative in preparing the information and answering our questions and providing analysis for this initial budget review. We couldn't be here without them, so thank you. As Council Member Rice, Chair Rice mentioned, we'd like to highlight that this meeting is an overview of the operating budget and that it is not intended for the committee to make a recommendation for the Council's consideration at this time. We are tentatively expected to return on April 29th for a follow-up discussion on MCPS's operating budget request, and that's for a few reasons. The first, the Council is currently considering public testimony on the MCPS FY23 operating budget and the whole FY23 operating budget, and those have not yet concluded. In addition, the Government Operations and Fiscal Policy Committee will be meeting tomorrow to discuss compensation and benefits for all of county government and the county agencies, and so we want them to have that conversation prior to discussing it related to MCPS here. And we also have the several Education and Culture and Health and Human Services joint meetings that overlap with the school community and with MCPS. And as I mentioned, because they are such priority areas for the Council, we wanted to make sure that they were discussed prior to a recommendation from the Council from the committee to the Council. And finally, to address any follow-up from today's meeting. So we are tentatively scheduled to meet on April 29th for that, as well as the Technology Modification CIP project review, which uses a significant source of current revenue. So that's usually discussed in the operating budget context outside of prior CIP discussions from the committee. And prior to starting my overview, I also want to mention, as you're all well aware, that Council President Albornoz has provided a recommended budget approach for fiscal year 23, which is to adopt a budget that more closely adheres to our adopted fiscal policies and reduces additions to the base budget while simultaneously funding the most critical direct services. And so Council staff has applied that recommended lens to our review of the requested and recommended FY23 MCPS operating budget. And Dr. McKnight and Chair Rice really highlighted this in their starting comments, that the request and the recommendation do provide significant increases to MCPS's operating budget compared to fiscal year 2022, and that we do know that we are coming to the end of ESSER funding, federal relief funding, in a few fiscal years. And with increases to the base budget, we do want to just keep in mind the future fiscal sustainability of those commitments and making sure that these wonderful services that are being provided are able to continue in a way that is reasonable for the future of MCPS. And so that's a really large part of our discussion. And the theme for today is utilizing the resources that are available at this time to provide those services, and also constantly monitoring and evaluating what that can look like in the future as we move out of different funding resources periods. And so now I will start the actual overview of the operating budget. I'd like to note that the staff report includes an in-depth information on what I will summarize today for the committee, and that includes the operating budget overview, which discusses the Board of Education's request, the county executive's recommendation, and maintenance of effort. The revenue summary, which highlights local, state, fund balance, and federal emergency relief funding, as well as an overview on the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation and gut-related funding. The racial equity and social justice analysis, which summarizes MCPS's efforts for equitable outcomes among all students, and a chapter-by-chapter overview related to the budget. And finally, the programmatic service changes with the expenditure adjustments and related revenue sources. And so my summary today will be a briefer version of the council packet, but that is available for the public and for all to also review. And so in fiscal year 2022, the council approved a total budget of $2.78 billion. And you'll see in the chart on the top of page 3, where we've shown the Board of Education request and the county executive recommendation compared to FY 2022. And The Board of Education requested a $2.96 billion budget, and the county executive recommended a $2.90 billion budget. And you'll see that's a $52 million difference, and that includes two technical amendments. The first is related to the enterprise fund, which we'll discuss later. But in addition, the $48.4 million reduction in county contribution. And so we wanted the total budget to reflect the MCPS's April 2022 monthly financial report fund balance status, where it shows that they are committed to providing $25 million in fund balance for the upcoming fiscal year and have just around $2.1 million remaining for the start of fiscal year 2023. And so we're going to use that 2.90 as the total recommended budget from the county executive. In addition, as I mentioned, the county contribution request was $1.9 billion from the Board of Education, and the county executive recommended a $1.8 billion county contribution request. And these are both reflecting significant increases over the FY22 approved county contribution amount for $134.8 million from the Board of Ed and an 86.4 increase from the county executive's recommendation. And I will mention this more in our maintenance of effort section, or MOE, as you might hear it be called, that there has been several revisions to the MOE formula over the past few years to address pandemic enrollment declines. And most recently in the 2022 General Assembly, some action on that on the FY23 level as well. But as I'll note that the county contribution request from the Board of Ed and the recommendation from the county executive are both significantly higher than whatever the final number may be for fiscal year 23. And so we won't have that concern on that finalizing language, which we will receive from the Maryland State Department of Education later in May. Okay. And so reviewing the Board of Education's request, as I mentioned, the highlights on their requested amounts. The budget includes, as Dr. McKnight and President Wolf mentioned in their overview, key investments to support overview areas such as most poverty impacted schools, well-being, safety and security, digital learning and support, and blueprint focus areas, as well as funding for new specialist positions, compensation and benefits, and state-related expenditures due to the blueprint and other items. And now moving to the county executive's request, as I mentioned, he recommended a total of $2.90 billion with a county contribution that is $86.4 million higher than FY 2022. And in that request, in the total budget request, as I mentioned, this technical amendment of $3.6 million reduction in the amount of appropriated funds for the enterprise fund as a pass-through to the county school bus camera program vendor to align with county revenue estimates. And MCPS Finance has confirmed that that's a fine technical amendment with them at this time. On page 5, you will also see that we have provided a summary of additional county support for MCPS and FY23. And we always provide this information where it shows that there is additional county dollars that directly benefit the school system that are provided to other agencies and departments within county government, such as Health and Human Services, Recreation, Police, libraries, Technology and Enterprise Business Solutions, Community Use of Public Facilities, and the Maryland National Capital Park and Planning Commission. And so we're seeing about an additional $350 million provided to these other agencies and departments that do support MCPS as well. So section 3 discusses maintenance of effort and required county contribution levels. And as I mentioned before, this section does provide a lengthy history of what we've seen pre-pandemic to the changes for fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 23. And I will note again that the amounts requested are significantly overestimated amounts. So the MOE number finalization is not a large concern at this time. However, a big change this year in fiscal year 23 was the start of the blueprint for Maryland's future 10-year funding period. And part of that includes that counties are required to pay to fund the greater of the blueprint local share well equalized formulas or the maintenance of effort level that has been determined for this year. And so for MCPS and for the future upcoming years, barring any significant changes on the state level, maintenance of effort will be the greater amount compared to the blueprint local share. And so that's a big change for fiscal year 23. And at this time, during the 2021 General Assembly, there was a unique formula passed in House Bill 1372, which provided revisions to blueprint and maintenance of effort to address declining enrollment. And that formula you can find at the top of page 7. However, now the 2022 General Assembly has passed House Bill 1450, which again amends fiscal year 23 maintenance of effort levels to match the fiscal year 21 appropriation from the county. And I will note that our Maryland State Department of Education and our State Department of Legislative Services do not yet agree on what the county's FY21 appropriation amount is, but that is being addressed on the state level, and we should have answers in May. And so when we talk about this maintenance of effort formula changes to address declining enrollment and what that looks like for the future, Maryland State Department of Education has not yet confirmed what the fiscal year 24 and potentially beyond formula for maintenance of effort is. We have ideas based on the language of House Bill 1450 and the fiscal note that the Department of Legislative Services has provided. However, what we do know is that based on the different scenarios of the language, that there will be an increase in per pupil funding with the increased county contribution amount, as that always happens. And the final impact is not known, but we do know that that would be an increase in maintenance of effort with increased enrollment. The per pupil funding amount is what typically stays the same year to year and goes up with increases in county contribution, and then we multiply that by enrollment to get our total maintenance of effort funding level. So we can never decrease per pupil funding absent a waiver, but that is the typical status quo. So with every dollar added to per pupil funding times enrollment, and that's how maintenance of effort also fluctuates based on enrollment, which the General Assembly attempted to address over the past few fiscal years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we could potentially see an increase to per pupil funding of around $11,912 for the upcoming fiscal year as MCPS returns to pre-pandemic levels and enrollment increases with a decline of the pandemic. So now I will turn to the revenue summary if there are no questions at this time. Okay, I'll keep going. And so I just want to provide a high-level overview on this section because we're really going to discuss it more in depth relating to the expenditure adjustments that Dr. McKnight outlined wonderfully in her starting comments. So the chart on the top of page 8 shows what our FY21 actual sources of revenue were compared to the FY22 approved, and then both the Board of Ed and county executives requested FY23 or recommended FY23 operating budget. And you'll see that typically that the county contribution provides 64% of the total budget request, and that has been the case for the past few fiscal years. In addition, Montgomery County has one of the highest per pupil funding amounts in the state, and most recently was second highest in the state in a 2021 Department of Legislative Services report. And you can see the summary of that on the top of page 9. In addition, when we look at the history of the actual approved amounts over MOE from council action, you'll see that in fiscal years 18 through 23, that there's a significant change this year. We're seeing around an $86.8 million increase over approved or over MOE, over the required MOE amounts. And then FY 18 through 22, we're seeing between 21 million to 750,000. Of course, that was right in the pandemic started, but there's been a range of amounts, but 86.8 is truly an outlier in this funding period. As I had mentioned before, with the fund balance, the board is requesting to use $25 million in fund balance to fund the FY23 operating budget, and that the April 7th, 2022 monthly financial report from MCPS shows that there's approximately $2.2 million in projected available FY23 start of year end balance funding. Moving on to state aid and blueprint.
Mr. Chairman. And
Councilman One. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I had a question about fund balance. I think this is, if we're doing is this the appropriate time to
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, great.
Sorry about that.
No, it's all right. It's a lot.
I don't know what's going on. Okay.
No problem. So just on this, I appreciate that, Ms. Rodriguez Hernandez, the 25 million fund balance, that's I guess my first question to you, that's typically what happens year to year, right? That's kind of the baseline. That's normal. That's normally what's passed on.
Yes, in the past few fiscal years, MCPS has been saving $25 million to use in the next fiscal year operating budget. Got it.
And Dr. McKnight, you or whoever on your staff, this is a point that you address that's in the county executive's budget, talking about a growth. I'll just quote it. And talking about change. Having that $20 million in savings. MCPS is rapidly growing fund balance, right? So I have not been able to get a really clear answer about what the fund balance is, and what it's in. And so first, let's start with that. What is it? What's the fund balance today, April 20th, 2022?
Thank you for that. Oh, Ms. Rodriguez, do you?
Go ahead, Dr. McKnight. I was just going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was actually going to have our budget team address that, Mr. Jawanda.
Okay. Thank you.
And our budget balance right now, if you're looking at our financial report, which is also referenced in this document, we have about $2 million over the $25 million. Mr. Jawanda, one of the questions that comes up too is our year-end fund balance, and that was referenced, our ever-growing fund balance. When you look at our year-end fund balance, that includes our year-end encumbrances. This year, it also included our student activity fund balance, which is one of the reasons why that fund balance grew at year-end, from last year-end to this year-end. That represented about $16 million. And that was a GASB, an accounting technical adjustment that we had to put in our fund balance. But if you just look at our current year fund balance, it's represented in that financial monitoring document, which is $2 million extra over the $25 million. So I wanted to distinguish between our year-end fund balance that was referenced and our current fund balance that we look at on a monthly basis.
What do you expect the year-end fund balance to be? Do you have?
So based on the executive's recommendation, we were looking at this in two different ways. We do know that ESSER funds are available, and we do know that we have expenditures in our current year operating fund that can be moved to ESSER. So that strategy, we could end up saving more than that $2 million by utilizing that, as well as being more aggressive in trying to find some more year-end savings. So we looked at it as a combination of the two factors as a goal of getting towards that $45 million.
Okay.
It might be helpful. It might be helpful for Mrs. Rodriguez Hernandez. Did you want to try to clarify our assumptions on that?
Sure. So in the county executive's recommended budget, he had mentioned that they could potentially save an additional $20 million based on fund balance information that they had reviewed to utilize towards their recommended budget request, the MCPS's budget.
They MCPS.
They being MCPS. And so council staff, and I apologize that I didn't clarify this earlier in the beginning, based on our review of the monthly financial report in April 7th, 2022, we agree with MCPS's original appropriation amount that they can only provide $25 million at this time of requested fund balance. There is not an additional $20 million in essentially savings from the current fiscal year to utilize for the next fiscal year operating budget. And I mentioned the year end or the year start fund balance of $2.2 million. So, they've saved and this is a projection, it was provided in April, but it is from February. And so that there can always be changes in the next few months as we end the fiscal 2022 year. But they have a projected only $2.2 million remaining after the $25 million has been appropriated for fiscal year 23 for the start of fiscal year 2023. And so that's why we, in our revised version of the county executive's recommended total budget, reduced it by $20 million, which is why it's a 52 total budget difference versus 32, which is how it originally is reflected in the recommended budget, because we do not, based on the information we reviewed, we wanted to accurately reflect how much in fund balance they had to be able to be used in fiscal year 23.
Appreciate that. And I see, Rich, you took your thing off. I mean, we have to get to, I understand this isn't really an agreement. This is like what is actually happening. And so when I hear like you were almost, I heard we don't agree, I actually want to know from, and I guess we'll have to sort it out based on what I hear from Rich Harris and OMB, but can you talk about what you saw that made you think that you had that and so that money was there in the fund balance? And I just heard from MCPS and understand their position, and our staff agrees, so that's helpful. But could you just explain to me, did you get further information? Is that still your view? What were you looking at there?
Sure, thank you. Rich Harris, Office of Management and Budget. What we're looking at is just the history of MCPS's fund balance back to 2010. And just the pretty expansive growth that's experienced over the past 5 years and even past 3 years. For example, I mean, the total fund balance, which includes everything Mr. Riley was talking about, the student activities funds, things that are assigned, there's a category called non-spendables. The total fund balance was, in 2017, the closing fund balance was $28 million. Fiscal 21 was $93 million, almost $94 million. That's a really significant growth. Looking at the encumbrances specifically, it was $3.6 million in 2016. It was almost $40 million in 21. That's a growth that's not double or triple. It's 11 times more in growth. It's a really
and explain encumbrances for the millions watching at home, and there might be millions this time, Mr. Rice. What an encumbrance is versus did you explain what that is?
Yeah, an encumbrance is using this year's money, making a big purchase, but the invoice won't actually come until the next year. So you save money in this year's budget to pay the bill next year. That what was saved in that manner was $3.6 million in 2016, grew to $8 million in 17, 15 million in 18, 24, 31, and then 39.9 million in fiscal 21. Money that's being saved in the current year budget to pay next year's bills. It's a growth that is, in the county executive's view, is unsustainable. And the adding 20 million, increasing the 20 million in fund balance was an attempt to try to rein in this growth that's happened in saving current year money to spend in the next year's budget. It also, in a way, kind of ties the hands of county government in that money that would otherwise be unspent if they're really just paying the invoice that comes next year with next year's budget. That would fall to the unassigned fund balance. Instead of having 2.2 million available, it could potentially be more. That's the perspective the county executive was coming with.
I appreciate that. And could MCPS respond to that? I understand that do you agree that I hope that these numbers are right, that those encumbrances have gone up in that way? And if so, can you say why you're doing that? Why aren't you just requesting the money in the year that it's going to be spent in that year's budget?
Yeah, so some of the explanation for that is some of these expenditures do start in the one fiscal year and get carried over into the next year, such as we had a ERP project that extended over the last 2 years, which is a major project for us. That started at the start of when Mr. Harris mentioned the
what's ERP? I'm sorry, I just want to
our financial system, our Oracle online system in the cloud. So that's one of the reasons. Also, at times, sometimes curriculum purchase orders are happening at year end rather than at the beginning. One thing I just do want to clarify too. So those expenditures that Mr. Harris mentioned, the 39 million in purchase orders, one of the things that comes up is that just extended throughout the year? And we did do, we analyzed it with the county as well. That purchase orders, if they are at year end, like we were mentioning, they should be spent within the first 3 months of the next subsequent year, and they were. So there was nothing kind of backhanded or out of the ordinary with this. It was just the timing of these expenditures of purchase orders that they aren't kind of carrying forward, and that they're not really a placeholder in our budget for increasing our fund balance. I don't know if that clarifies or makes it more confusing.
If I could just jump in. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please. Yeah, you are uniquely positioned to answer, Ms. McGuire. Please go ahead.
No, I appreciate that. And I do think that, certainly the encumbrances, as have been pointed out, that's a significant amount of spending. I do think that showing that at the end of the year doesn't necessarily mean that it is not necessary spending. And I think that it's that sort of timing issue. The financial report itself, that is the document that shows the funds available. And to your question, Mr. Gerwando, that is the reference point that we are using and the Mcps uses in terms of identifying what are the actual funds available. And so that 25 million has been shown as projected available at the end of the year. That's built into the budget assumptions. There may be some additional funding saved at the end of the year. And frankly, that's fiscal prudence on the part of the school system to do that because they, by law, cannot end the year in deficit. So we may be able, so for example, at this point in time from the financial report, there's a projection of an additional 2 million. It's possible that that could be added as resources. An additional 20 million, though, or anything of that nature would require the school system to affirmatively not spend some of the funds that are planned for encumbrances. And so an encumbrance is
or use the ESSER fund or switch things around or,
Correct, right, exactly. So that, they would have to affirmatively not spend or shift the funding source to federal funds to produce an additional $20 million of savings in the current year. And that's where those encumbrances, I think the timing of them may appear to be growing at the end of the year, but it is, because of how it's reflected in the financial report, it is planned spending. It's not necessarily, unusual spending. It's just planned for end of the year.
And just my last question on this point, I appreciate the chair's indulgence. I think this is just important. We get a lot of questions on this. We got testimony last night on the budget about this point. The 90 million in fund balance, was that, Mr. Harris, was that the end of year number you were talking about? So what was that? Was that the end of year or was that the balance sheet number? Which number?
That was the fiscal 21 closing balance.
Okay.
The total, including
which included the encumbrances and all that.
Including encumbrance, includes the 25 million, includes the non-spendables I mentioned, includes the field trip, the student activity funds. I think it was that Mr. Riley mentioned, includes it, all of it.
Okay.
And some of the spending patterns at MCPS do require summer purchases. I mean, that is often a time for large purchases for the school system.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that. I think it's just really important to understand. And I guess the last thing I'd say on this point is, is the goal I hope is to, you do these purchases in such a way that there's not seemingly this pattern, right? Like, to try to keep it in the year. I know there's things that obviously go over. We have a huge school system. There's a lot of needs. And so could you just, whether it's Mr. Riley or whatever, or the superintendent, is that something that you're going to try to really monitor and do, make sure that we're trying to keep it within the year so that we don't have these large end of year fund balances when you can avoid it?
And obviously, since it is causing confusion, that is something that we've discussed internally, that we're looking to reduce the number of year-end purchase orders or encumbrances to make it easier to understand going into the next year. And just to clarify, I'm reiterating what Ms. McGuire said. The only funds we have available for the subsequent year budget based on last year is the 25 million plus $6 million that we had in unassigned. All the other items mentioned are not available to balance the budget.
Got it. Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. I hope it was helpful for others. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's it on this point.
And Mr. Gerwando, the only other thing I would add is in terms of making sure that we're closing out encumbrances in a timely fashion. So that's something that we have been very particular about, and to ensure that we don't go into the end of the year that way. The other thing that we have looked at and worked with the superintendent and the budget team is being more fiscally, having some restraint as we go into these final months. And with our system, our new hub system. Some of that helps us to utilize July 1st as a better date. So we are being very prudent at this time.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Dawson. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And I think it is an important point, and one in which, while I agree with the county executive and Mr. Harris in terms of trying to rein this in, I don't believe that a random number makes the most sense, and in such an aggressive number because it didn't increase by 20 million from last year, right? So then going to a 20 million for this year doesn't make a lot of sense. If we're really trying to rein in, it should be that same progressive growth. I know that exponentially over the years, you can look at it and say that from where it started to where we are now is exponential. But the reality is that last year wasn't that much different from this year. We've seen significant growth over the years, and that is concerning. And so I think that message has been heard. So I think that it's good in the sense that we've, made it very clear to the school system, work with us in terms of making sure that those adjustments are there. But I think the key point in this, and this is what you highlighted, Councilmember Joando, is that these are not funds that are just sitting there that aren't spoken to. And what you do is by actually taking that 20 million, you create a hole for the following year. And something in which I've been talking about has been my concern is setting up the future council for success and not having this huge challenge that you have in terms of affordability. I keep reminding folks that as we continue to ramp up Kerwin or Blueprint, that these kinds of costs, especially related to the school system, are going to grow exponentially. You heard from the superintendent in terms of compensation. That will significantly hit. You've got so many other things, including Councilmember Navarro's push when it comes to wellness centers and community schools, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. But there are significant responsibilities when it comes to early care and education. I just want to make sure that you guys are certainly set up in a good position when it comes to, and so adding that 20 million on top of what it is that you'll need to continue to try and find for next year's budget, just from a maintenance of effort and Blueprint perspective, is significant. And so from that standpoint, I just really feel as though for now, we don't want to try and layer that on top of what it is that you're already going to need. Because those ESSER funds, those ARPA funds, all those things we know are gone now. And so from that standpoint, there's not going to be that additional federal bailout when it comes to some of these things. But the expectation from our community, like I was saying yesterday in our conversation, is that these things are going to continue. And so from that standpoint, we just want to be very cautious. So I think that we've had a robust discussion around this. The message has been clear and heard from Office of Management and Budget and the county executive in terms of reining that in so that we don't have that continued growth, and there are ways in which we can do that. We understand that it's not going to go to zero right away. It didn't come from zero, but it is something where if we can continue that fiscal policy and direction, I think we'll be in a much better place, and we'll give some assurance to the county executive and Office of Management and Budget that they were heard loud and clear in terms of a better way in which we can address some of the expenditures there. So, all right. Any other thoughts from my colleagues? If not, Ms. Rodriguez. Councilmember Navarro. Sorry. Yep. See it.
No, thank you. I wanted to share that, this has been a conversation that has been taking place for years. And I remember even as when I was sitting at the Board of Education table, one of the things that was important always to point out is that in a school system with that amount of, in terms of that scope of the budget, right? When you think about that, it is actually a pretty good best practice to end the year so close. Sometimes $20 million, seems like a real big number, but not in the scope of, almost $3 billion. And so I think it is important to put things into perspective and understand that in terms of efficient management of the budget, to actually get to that amount is pretty, it's pretty good. I mean, it's a pretty good best practice actually. And it doesn't mean that you're somehow just, leaving things on the table or trying to just wall off things. you have to think of what the amount of the budget actually is and what that $20 million actually represents. So I just wanted to point that because it's a constant conversation. And again, dates back to my days on the Board of Education where the budget was actually smaller. And we would do that. However, also, as we are talking about the overall budget, there's no doubt that we have to think of, every single penny and the sustainability issues and the structural issues and things like that, to as Chairman Rice said, to set up the next, term, the next leaders, to set them up to be successful as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. And it's so funny how we have so many people that are so uniquely positioned in terms of their prior experience that are certainly able to help us to get to a really good place. So appreciate your experience on the school board and how that helps us to understand how this all works. Let me turn. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Can I just ask one, and I don't know if this is the appropriate place, but I want to ask, and I can wait if it's not, the health insurance fund. That was the other. Yeah, so we're going to get to that. All right. So I have questions on that. I just want
the Government Operations Fiscal Policy Committee will meet tomorrow to discuss the compensation benefits for all the agencies, and so we'll discuss that. They'll discuss that tomorrow, and we'll bring it back up for discussion on April 29th.
Got it. Sounds good. Okay. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Rodriguez-Hernandez.
All right. Well, thank you for that conversation and being able to clarify some points on the executive's recommended revenue sources. I appreciate that. So jumping back into state aid and blueprint, the governor's recommended operating budget showed an increase of approximately $41.5 million over the fiscal year 2022 level for an approximate total of $863.7 million. We'll note that the 2022 General Assembly recently closed their 2022 session, and so we'll be awaiting final state aid awards on total amounts and restrictions and unrestricted aid from the Maryland State Department of Education soon. And so the table 6 and page 10 shows the pieces of the state aid composition as well as the increases over fiscal year 2022. And then in the blueprint for Maryland's future, as I'd mentioned before, this is the first official year of the 10-year funding period for the blueprint. We did receive prior blueprint-like or blueprint starter funding for the past few fiscal years, but this is the official of the 10-year period, first official year. And so as Dr. McKnight had mentioned, the MCPS has received $38.8 million, which is a $7.5 million increase compared to last year. And you can see in table 7, the breakout on the funding allocations through that state aid amount. And as I mentioned before, we'll be finalizing what state aid is restricted and unrestricted, which impacts funding allotments towards the current fund and grant fund. And so we will be able to finalize those adjustments and categorizations in time for council approval in May.
I did just want to highlight Mr. Rodriguez-Hernandez and just wanted to, for my colleague's sake, and then when you look at students with disabilities reimbursement and you see the funding level and you see that change from FY22 and then an increase in students with disabilities formulas, there were some switches that were there. You see that we're still woefully short when it comes to what truly we need to address. And so it's great to see that the federal government has stepped up in some sort of way with some of that additional funding via what the president put forth in his focus on IDEA. But the reality is that we really need Senator Van Hollen. And so I just want to put another pitch in for this legislation because it really is important. We have large expenditures when it comes to our students with differing needs and differing abilities, and really is one where we take it on the chin when it comes to the expenses that the school system puts forth, but what we get from reimbursements from both the state level as well as from the federal government. So if there's one place beyond where we currently are, where we see ourselves continuously fall woefully short, and it's been for decades, it's been when it comes to our students with differing abilities and differing needs. And so from that standpoint, I just wanted to, for my colleagues who are returning, so Councilmember Jawando, I see Vice President Glass is still kind of on the line here. Just remind you to not forget these particular places. Those categories are ones that we should always pay special attention to and continue to lobby our state government, to lobby the federal government, to make sure that need is met. It really is important as we look to focus on equity. So many of our kids with differing abilities and differing needs are children of color, children of lower socioeconomic status who oftentimes don't get the support because their parents can't just go out and pay for those additional supports. And so they're relying upon the school system to pretty much do it all. And so from that standpoint, that's where we see some of our largest gaps and ones in which I really just think that we can do a better job. We as a nation can do a better job. And so it's my hope that we'll see some traction when it comes to that. But just wanted to highlight that for folks that are watching. So thank you. Back to you, Mr. Hernandez, sorry.
No, of course, thank you. And so the final section in discussing the revenue sources is the federal emergency relief that the school system has received over the past couple of years. And Dr. McKnight did a wonderful job of describing the ESSER funds. And I won't try to compete with that, but I will note that the tables in pages 11 through 13 provide an update of the spending allocations for ESSERs 1, 2, and 3 as of February 2022. And we'll note that we received additional information from MCPS Finance providing updated available funding amounts as of March 31st, 2022. And so we're looking at approximately $165 million available, noting the ending fiscal period. The term for the use of funding is for ESSER 3, September 30th, 2024. So we have until around fiscal year 25 with the additional ESSER funding.
Let me turn to Councilmember Jawando. I know he had a question about this before. So Councilmember Jawando.
Thank you. So 165.5 million available in federal funding, ESSER funding, that has to be spent between now by 2025 roughly, right?
2024.
2024. I'm sorry. And Dr. McKnight, I know you spoke to some of this. You have it earmarked. Is there and I might have missed this in this great packet, and if so, you can direct me to the page. But like where that number, I think it'd be really good to see. Like, okay, here's that 165 over the next couple of years, and here's where it's going. And what page is that?
It's circle page 92, so it is towards the bottom of the packet. I apologize. It was just a large chart. So, and if we scroll down to that, you'll be able to see MCPS's projected use and estimated funds by item, by category, as well as through fiscal year 22, 23, and 24. So that's years 1, 2, and 3 that are shown in the chart.
Got it. I see it here. Okay. And just so MCPS, I just want to allow you, maybe I think this is another point that comes up and is important. We're so thankful, and I totally agree with Councilmember Rice's last point about the advocacy to our federal officials, but we also continue to thank them for their the support that has allowed us in so many ways to really stave off cuts and make critical investments. And so, and maybe if high level, I see you have a lot of things here that you projected in either 1, 2, or 3 year budget. And I'm assuming we get down to the bottom right here, all of that 160, we get to 164,960. So you pretty much, it's all projected to be spent on these various things over the next 3 years, roughly, and how that relates to augmenting your budget request, I guess, is if someone could comment on that.
Yes, I'll start with this one, Councilmember Jawando. And first, I want to say thank you for your comments, because I do believe, and I started out saying this, transparency in the process of this is really important. It always has been important, but more so now since we have 2 pots of money that we want to be very transparent about our operating budget and our ESSER funding. So while you see a list of priorities there that we are going to focus in terms of all of the spending for ESSER, I do want to highlight that even when we talk about utilizing ESSER funds for other purposes, we have a very process in place in which we collaborate with a number of our community stakeholders around use of that ESSER funding. I just want to, I call that out because in the spirit of transparency, when we know we received all of these federal funds, we said that it was important for us to involve our community and the interests of our community in how we wanted to rebuild in an innovative way around these priorities for the school system moving forward. So anytime we change or make adjustments there to offset things in our operating budget, we want to respect that process. And that means we go back and we collaborate with our community stakeholders and say, hey, there's something that we may not implement or we may not do because we're now going to need to shift these funds to offset some other priority in the operating budget. And I mean, just to give you an example of what that is, and this is the first one that comes to mind, but it's a real one. When we started to think about innovation moving forward and really utilize a lot of money to build our virtual Montgomery Academy, we recognized that this was for students who were in extenuating circumstances as a result of COVID-19. It was the interest of our community members and the interest of the school system and the Board of Education for us to look at how can we expand, again, programs, opportunities that have been limited in the past so that we can use virtual learning in a new, more expansive and create more access to programs for students in ways that we've had to limit before. That is a core area of why you see a lot of the investments around building for technology future in ESSER. And some may say, well, you have technology in the operating budget, but that's for a very different purpose. That's for us to rebuild in a very different way. So I shared that example with you because I think that's one of the most concrete ones that gets at why you see some of the things that are listed there and how we've involved others in that process. And when we have to do an offset of the operating budget, it does impact that vision and the work that we've worked with others to say, how do we want to prioritize this? In terms of your technical part of the question, in terms of how does this offset anything in the operating budget right now, I'll let Mr. Riley address that.
Yeah, and Mr. Riley, before you jump in, the Virtual Academy is a great example too. It was going to be my second question, so maybe you can address both. So it was projected 11 million, about 5 million, 11 million year one, 5 million year two, 7.6 year three, but an overall budget of 23.5 million. And then so there's 10 million, it says 10 million funds available, this last column. Like, what does that mean? If it's not used in those 3 years, what does that mean? And explain that difference to, you know, how that impacts the first question of the offset in the operating budget.
Yeah, and to address that question, we don't intend to leave anything on the table at the end of 9/30/2024. So that 10 million that you're looking for, and as Dr. McKnight mentioned, that's going to help with the transition as we move Virtual Academy into the operating budget. And to answer your first question, so that's kind of the exercise that we're going to be doing with all our ESSER funds. So as you know, I keep mentioning 9/30/2024. We refer to it as the ESSER cliff. So at that point, our federal funding goes away. So in that meantime, between now and then, we're going to be looking at monitoring and evaluating success and what, as Dr. McKnight mentioned, what we're going to use from that funding or programs within that ESSER to incorporate into the operating budget. But with that said, that means something has to come out of the operating budget to make that funds, to make that available. So we're looking at, you know, in investment terms, a return on investment, or we like to call it an academic return on investment. And by doing that, we're aligning that with our strategic plan. We're looking at our objectives, our strategies, and our metrics of success for each of those separate programs to help us determine that. And also, too, one of the things that came out of our budget work sessions was, even though it's not technically required anymore, it was a requirement out of ESSA to do a program budget. We're moving back towards doing a program budget because that's going to help us evaluate these new programs or existing programs to help us make that determination of what goes into the operating and what comes off ESSER.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I appreciate that explanation. And I think, to my colleagues on the committee and to chair and to our staff, I think having periodic, as you're doing that review, coming back to us, this is a lot of money and it's a lot of opportunity for innovation. But to give us some feedback, either written or in person, about how those things are going, what the metrics are, a little deeper dive into them. We'll get through this budget process, but I think that's going to be something that will inform all of us as we're making budget decisions in the years to come. My colleagues, as the junior member of the committee, and one who hopes to be back, I think that'll be important for kind of going forward and, into these next several years. so if we could, maybe Mr. Hernandez and Rodriguez and Ms. McGuire just kind of note that, find a way to figure out ways to check in on those expenditures. And I'll just end with this, the food services alone, I think we take for granted that, everyone's been getting these meals, and how much additional burden that has lifted off of our work, our larger work, to make sure that no one's hungry in our community when we saw a big surge. And so I appreciate, that for example, that Meals for Summer 2022 is a part of this, and it's a critical component, and something that another federal, state, local combination where we need to have all meals be free for all kids all the time. And we've been able to do that in large part thanks to this federal money for a long time, and so more work to do on that. But really appreciate that answer and pointing out this chart, and hopefully we can set up a mechanism to check in on this more regularly as we go along. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely. And Councilmember Jawando, thank you for teeing that up, because, I remember our conversations with Dr. McKnight at the very beginning when we were talking about the remaining balances that so many students had when it came to school meals, and waiving those balances and incorporating that into the budget to make sure that those who still had arrearages were wiped away. It started with that, and then went to, this whole notion of something that is sweeping the nation in terms of free meals for all kids all the time. And it is something that, again, is deeply rooted in our commitment to making sure that when our children walk through the doors, the only thing they need to worry about is learning, and not worry about anything else, right? Whether it's health, well-being, as you've heard Councilmember Navarro continue to champion and espouse, whether it's working to make sure that they're not hungry, all of the things, are doable. We just have to have the will to make them happen. And so I'm happy to hear that those values continue to be espoused. It is something that certainly on the national level, we will continue to push. And, thank you to great leaders like Jim McGovern, who continues to push for this, and who has the Hunger Summit that is coming up later on this fall with the White House, to where hopefully we'll see some traction around this. And really, it'll alleviate pressure on our school system to, again, continue to focus on the things that they need to focus on, and not be stuck in the mire of worrying about USDA waivers when it comes to ensuring that our kids can be fed. So thank you for highlighting that. All right, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, I think we're done with ESSER then at that point.
Yeah, I was just going to highlight that in addition to the ESSER funds, and last year the committee reviewed all of the relief funding MCPS has been awarded. And in addition, on yesterday, the council introduced those additional ARPA funding, Individuals with Disabilities Education Act funding grants, as well as the Transitional Supplemental Instruction Grant. So those are additional funds that they should be receiving soon in this fiscal year. And we will come back to ESSER in Section D and bringing up the wonderful points Mr. Jawando and Councilmember Jawando mentioned. And we definitely have noted a mechanism to create a mechanism for that reporting function on ESSER 3. So Section C is on the racial equity and social justice analysis, and Councilmember Navarro highlighted the importance of this yesterday in the council's overview operating budget discussion. And MCPS has provided a chapter-by-chapter overview in their budget of how they're addressing racial equity and social justice, and that can be found on Section 14 for all of the known chapters as well as the new ones under Dr. McKnight's administration, such as the strategic initiatives and district-wide services and support, or Chapter 6, just highlighting not only how the budget is approaching racial equity and social justice, but how the agency as a whole is, of course, doing that every single day in the classroom and through their programs, through the All Means All approach that has been implemented, as well as the All-in Equity and Achievement Framework, composed of the 3 components of evidence of learning, the equity accountability model, and equitable access to resources, as well as the ongoing anti-racism system audit that is occurring in the school system at this time.
So I think this is the appropriate time where I think I'm going to turn to Councilmember Navarro. I just wanted to thank you guys for doing the anti-racism system audit. I participated as a parent. So we went through that, and so got the numerous email reminders. You guys were dogged, I'm telling you, in terms of making sure that parents participated in that. So I just wanted
text messages. You know.
Yes, and text messages. Will you know? I'm telling you, you guys were on it in terms of making sure that parents responded to this, and it really does speak to, you know, it's interesting because I talked to some parents who were like, well, I don't understand. What does this mean? And, you know, is this like the beginning of, you know, something with, you know, them now teaching, you know, critical race theory and all those kinds of things? And I said, listen, this is a way for us, just like we do with other questionnaires, to get an idea of what our students are experiencing and what they're seeing. And it's just that simple, so that we can then be more responsive and address the needs of our kids. And so I just really want to thank you for doing that, because again, for so many parents throughout the system, they've been talking about this for a long time. They've been talking about some of the issues that their students are going through, that they're experiencing. And so by really getting this data is really going to, I think, help us to make even better informed decisions about what's going on in our community. So I just wanted to say thank you. So with that, let me turn to Councilmember Navarro, who I know has some specifics related to some of these key concerns. So Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you so much. I would be remiss if I didn't first give a shout out to former Councilmember Valerie Irvin, first African-American woman ever elected to the Montgomery County Council, the only one, because she was the pioneer on this whole entire approach to food security with community gardens. She's the one who really began that work that led to the Food Council. It was one of her main priorities. So I think it's always important to lift up those who stepped out there and started to do something that was at that time groundbreaking, but now, as we see, has really become embedded in how we respond to something as important as this. So I just wanted to lift that up. And so I also want to thank the Board of Education, as well as Dr. McKnight and her team, because as we all know, when we passed the Racial Equity and Social Justice Act, we could not compel the school system to follow that law because, of course, it's a state agency. We know that we don't have jurisdiction over the school system, but we did request that they please, on a volunteer basis, provide the equity analysis, and that would be embedded in the executive's budget request. And they've done that. And that in itself is also historic because that has not ever been done before. So I really want to thank you for your continuous collaboration and transparency. Also, you know, just thinking back to going down memory lane, I remember even before joining the Board of Education when there was a pronouncement made by Dr. Wiest at that time regarding putting race on the table. I think it was the tagline. And it was the first time that there had been that presentation of the school system and the geographic areas where you had a combination of high ESOL, of mobility, as well as farms, right? Focused, non-focused areas. Lo and behold, as we know, that is very much still the case today. If you look at that map, it's pretty much the same. And I also did a quick glance at you know, the page MCPS at a glance to look at the demographic makeup of the school system. If I am looking at it correctly, it's about 74% students of color. And so my questions, I guess, I want to frame this from the perspective of, you know, when you have a school system that is 74% of color, obviously, when we talk about racial equity and social justice, you know, it almost seems odd to do that because obviously by definition, it is a school system where you have to keep in mind how to best provide high quality education to all students, while at the same time understanding that there are going to have to be some targeted, culturally appropriate, proficient, linguistically appropriate, proficient ways to ensure that students are served appropriately. In essence, the school system your customers, in essence, are majority children of color, right? And so I think it's important to have that framing, because a lot of times I feel like when we talk about equity, et cetera, we tend to think that we're talking about pockets. In this case is basically 74% of your student population. And so I'm curious about how do you do that, right? When you were talking, Dr. McKnight, about the community schools concept, which I am a huge fan, have always been, huge fan of that. When you talk about wellness, the wellness centers, but also the welcome centers, when you talk about, how do we really leverage that return on investment on educational, the academic return on investment. I'm always thinking about dual language programs and things like that. So that's how I wanted to frame this question was, okay, given who we are now, who is MCPS, 74% students of color, given the fact that the pandemic obviously has come to really, truly exacerbate a lot of those gaps, how do you then, as leaders, position the system to adequately provide the best possible opportunities for all students while scaling up those best practices that we know are culturally proficient and linguistically proficient, which will then give you the results that you want, which is, academic excellence for all. And so how do these particular pieces that you mentioned, how does that get you there? And are there any particular ones that you are thinking about just scaling up because they already have shown important results, which goes to the question that Councilmember Jawando was asking, et cetera, thinking forward, finite resources, what's the best bang for your buck, given the characteristics of the school system that you're leading?
Thank you, Councilmember Navarro. That's a that's a loaded, very important question, because it just really gets at how does this all fit into the vision of MCPS and who we are today? And I so appreciate your comments, because the first one is acknowledging who we are today. You just said it very well. While there was a map that was developed in the early 2000s around the zones, and that's what it was called, the zones within MCPS. And they were colored zones, the green zone, the yellow zone. I'm really focusing on what were the impact of, or where do we have diversity? How did that diversity exist in income in all of these spaces? What we have is, yes, some of those zones still exist, but there's also been quite a bit of mobility that has raised the level of need, quite frankly, in many of the areas that were zoned as high areas of need before, but the need is even more significant. So I'll just touch on a few things, and I think this is a part of a conversation that we should have always when we start these discussions, which is kind of how does this fit into the vision of who the school system is today? And the first is kind of getting to really spending time within our community to help everybody understand that equity means that every student gets what it is that they need to excel. That's the starting point. Because when we recognize that, then we give ourselves permission to say that equity doesn't always mean equality. That means it is okay to differentiate based on the need. And so much of our conversation today and some of the items that I mentioned in our discussion were high leverage points that we're looking at that really gets to that differentiation. We talked about the science of reading as a program that we found to be research-driven and proven to help those build literacy skills, particularly those students who look at literacy through a lens of making sure that it marries up culturally with what they're being taught and how they're being taught, that the curriculum is just relevant to who they are. That's just one example. So really being able to differentiate not only the resources that we give to schools based on what the need is, but the types of programs that we provide. And the science of reading is just one of them. I mentioned earlier the expansion of pre-K. Well, we know what pre-K, where pre-K programs need to exist, and where in our community it's going to be even more important for students to get that early start to pre-K access. So really looking at our communities that are going to benefit from having pre-K at readily accessible to students so that parents and families can get students involved so that they can then get a jump start to be prepared for what we need them to be prepared for when they enter into kindergarten in MCPS specifically. Pre-K is a good leverage. When we talk about dual language and enrollment, one of the leverage points that we've been discussing internally, and this gets at the virtual opportunities. So we really value language, and we want to create as many students being dual language students in Montgomery County Public Schools. We have to go beyond just offering learning of language through dual enrollment programs at schools. So also looking at opportunities to provide partnerships to teach languages that go beyond dual enrollment programs, and looking at those partnerships, making them more available beyond dual enrollment, but also looking at dual enrollment and those additional programs to say, all right, what's the trajectory of what we need to then have available in our middle and high schools so that students are available to get acquainted and learn and be familiar and continue with the learning of language from elementary all the way through high school, so that availability is there. So that ensures us in so many ways that when we graduate, we're going to have students who just are not familiar with the language, but they are they can speak another language and be very proficient in it. So those are just a few. We can definitely talk more about it, but really being very thoughtful about how we use equity in terms of resources and what we're providing to our schools, and based on what the need is, how we're providing that differentiation of resources available to different schools based on what the need is. And at the same time, using high leverage opportunities to say, where are we being very particular about placing pre-K programs and reaching out to those families that we want to enroll in programs such as pre-K in our county. So those are just a few, but it really is giving ourselves permission and working with our community and understanding that differentiation is getting every child what they need, and none of that's taken away from all that we need to do to continue to advance all of our children in their learning in Montgomery County Public Schools.
I appreciate that. I think, on a macro level, and again, thinking through who will be back, et cetera, on a macro level, it is important to reflect on the MCPS of 2022 and also be able to own that while 73% of the student population is of color, it doesn't mean that all these are students who are, struggling in a particular way or affected necessarily by poverty, but it does mean that it's almost as if there is an opportunity to identify some, best practices, right, that will help all of those students. In other words, teacher diversity, right? I mean, that helps all students. When you have a school system that is, again, 74% of color, having faculty that reflects the student population goes a long way to help all students achieve the best that they can achieve, correct? Also, though, I think, again, thinking about layers, there would be another category for making sure that students who have traditionally struggled. And so when I talk about dual language programs, as you know, we've talked about this, it's not just about the acquisition and being bilingual, which is awesome, but it's also because it allows us to reduce the percentage of ESOL students, given that 70% of ESOL students are U.S. citizens. It tells us that there's something happening, obviously, in the first 5 years of life that we need to address. But I think dual language programs allows for language acquisition to be an asset, right? So that low income, let's just say Latino student who is now going to go into ESOL, now language is an asset, right? I'm learning English, I'm teaching you Spanish, vice versa. And that helps theoretically, right? That's what we need to evaluate, helps make sure that we're not tracking these students into ESOL, which then creates a pipeline of remediation later on. And so I feel like it is incumbent upon all of us to make sure that we take a step backwards especially now with this opportunity, to just think through what does that mean? What does a school system that is 73% of color in a wealthy county like ours, how can we make sure that we become that model of excellence for everyone? Because when every student is doing really well, right, the system itself is doing very well. The system itself then is high functioning. The system itself works for everyone. But when you contrast that with when, you know, the red zone, green zone map became a thing, and then we shifted that language, that narrative to focus and non-focus areas. When you think about the demographics at that point, and you contrast that with today, it's quite startling where we are today in terms of the student population. It's a very different school system. The growth has been exponential in students of color, which then again begs the question of how does one address excellence for all in a school system of this type? And the fact that everyone benefits when we are razor sharp focused on best practices and interventions for particularly those students of color. So I thank you, because to be honest, that was my hope behind the racial equity and social justice law. Is just that it's a structural thing, it's a systemic thing. It's not gonna change is not gonna happen overnight, but I think it gives us the ability and the space to think about all of those components and strategically really, think about, okay, what does it mean to have schools that, let's say, have a high proportion of Latino student enrollment, but there are no bilingual folks in the front office, right? What does that mean? How can we address that? Things like that. I think it gives us that opportunity, because all of that at the end is additive towards eliminating those gaps that keep us, behind, and it costs money, to remediate those gaps as well. So anyway, I'm just very excited in terms of what I've heard, how I see you leading and the members of the Board of Education and the leadership leading the system to this next phase. It's, I think, extraordinary, huge challenge, but I know you're all up to it, and I can't wait to see where it's headed. Thank you.
Councilmember Navarro, I just wanted to just pick up there for a minute. What you just said was so profound, and I want to acknowledge I have a unique opportunity starting as a new superintendent in this county on July 1 to address some of the very systemic things that you just raised so eloquently. There's some issues that have existed in our school system that have existed for far too long, and they're things that, quite frankly, just don't impact Montgomery County, have impacted the nation in terms of, you really have to ask the question, why is this the norm in the educational structure in a way that it is? To me, it gets quickly to, you have to change our mindsets around our expectations, and we have to be aware of our community, and most importantly, be aware of who our students are as we serve them, and pay attention to how we are supporting their growth. And when I think about some of those systemic issues that you raised, absolutely, diversity of staff. That is one that we always have to look at, because when you think about the staff should reflect the community that it's serving. And we have a long way to go in Montgomery County in terms of doing that work, but it's one that we have been working on, and the Board of Education have actually elevated as a key leverage point, and continue to ask questions every year, as they should, around what are we doing to address that. Identification of ESOL students. We've learned over the years, even through a process of identification of providing ESOL services to support students, there's so many factors involved in that. Some of it may be processes of identification, but some of it may be working with families to help them understand that, you may see this as a crutch for your child, but they're ready to move on and do other things. And so that comes back to that relationship piece that you just spoke about. And staff who understand and know and will work with the families to help them make the best interest, or make the best decisions in the interests of the student. There's some things that we already know are systemic issues that we will continue to work on and address, and we'll get substantially better at in MCPS. There's no doubt in my mind that we're going to get there. I know it. I feel very confident about that. But we also know that that anti-racist audit is going to tell us some of the why things are happening. Because that's why we wanted to take the opportunity to evaluate ourselves and our own systems and structures, because in some ways, we may be looking at a process working well or not even evaluating the process if a problem doesn't come up, but it may have been a process that was put in place to solve a different problem 20, 30 years ago that's just no longer relevant and is not serving us in the way that we want it to do today. And so starting a new journey in MCPS, new superintendent, coming out of the pandemic, really saying, what does this audit tell us about who we are in Montgomery County? How do we engage our community that you just said represents the 74% of students of color in our system? What does this mean in terms of how we serve today in 2022 in MCPS? And taking the time to understand that before we say this is exactly what we're going to do. And I think that's going to be very key in this process, because I don't want to start on July 1 just saying this is everything we're going to do in our school system. But I do want to say, here's some things that we're going to do in our school system based on what we learned from listening sessions, from review of data, from interacting with the staff and taking some of the qualitative accounts of what they share to say, I think this is where we're going to start right now. And here's what we're going to continue to build on. So exciting opportunity. I have full confidence that we will get there to serve every child in the system in the way that they need to be served, because that's why we're here. And that's what we are committed to doing. And I look forward to having that conversation in this forum on a regular basis.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. I'll close saying this. I think narrative is everything, and how we frame what we do is everything. And I've been on record saying time and time again, researchers continue to show that of all the developed countries in the world, they all have an aging population. We are one of those countries that has an aging population. But we also have a young population. That is our distinction. And that young population is primarily young people of color. That is the trend. We see it on the census. Now, Maryland is the most diverse state on the East Coast. So we have such an extraordinary opportunity here. We have an incredible asset. This should really, truly be something that everyone should embrace, because it is a socioeconomic imperative for our county, for our state, for the country, right? We need to ensure that all our young people, that they're all prepared for those jobs to be competitive, to take the United States to its highest levels. We will not get there if we continue to be so reticent to acknowledge that we have to make those investments, and that we have to align the best practices to ensure that all these students, especially those students of color, because they are fast becoming the majority, that they are ready. So this should be bipartisan. This should not be an issue where everybody's tiptoeing. This is the bottom line. And I think that that's why framing and narrative is so critical, and facts are so critical, so that we cut through all of that noise that is actually gonna, it's actually gonna hinder us as a nation. Absolutely will. And Montgomery County is so poised to be that laboratory that shows how it can be done. And as you just said, Dr. McKnight, what an amazing opportunity with you here, starting as a new superintendent, right? As this pandemic has opened so many opportunities. What an amazing opportunity, a moment in time to really show and do that. So thank you so much for indulging me. I think it's amazing and important. I always believe that context and framing should always be the start of any conversation that then goes down to the granular level when we talk about budgets and what they mean, et cetera. Platitudes are not going to get us there. We need to understand what's the framing, the context, and then break it down to actually how we're going to operationalize these extraordinary strategies that will, I think, yield the results that we all want. So thank you so much for indulging me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Navarro. And, you got me thinking, so many companies these days are rebranding based on who their consumer is. And, we see it. Commercials have changed from who they used to reach out to where they are now, incorporating the LGBTQ plus community in terms of their messaging when it comes to every single thing, understanding that there is a different consumer market that's out there. Understanding that our consumer market, our constituency has changed means that our strategic plan in terms of how we are going to support our constituency must change. That is what racial equity and social justice, what I think, if I may be so bold as to say what I think that your initiative is, it is a strategic plan and initiative for how we need to address how we meet the needs of our now changed community. It's basic. It's basic from my sense in terms of that any person who wants to truly say that they're meeting the needs of their constituency needs to understand who their constituency is. And so highlighting that makes perfect sense. So folks should be unabashedly, supportive of the fact that, yes, we are addressing the needs of our Black and Brown students because they represent the majority of the students in our schools, but it doesn't stop there. It also includes all of our students as well. And the things that we're doing are lifting up all of our students, not just our Black and Brown students. And once folks understand that that is what it is our initiative in terms of doing, I believe that what you're saying, Councilmember Navarro, is that other folks will then start to get it and start to understand. It's hard. I see some of the conversations that happen in our neighboring jurisdictions when it comes to protecting school systems and saying that, oh, we have slots allocated for certain individuals. We see these kinds of conversations where folks don't want to let go of what they have because they somehow think that that means that they will no longer have. The reality is that I do believe that that rising tides lift all boats. I do believe that having a better economic situation for all folks in our community means that we have a stronger economy, which means we have to rely less upon taxes, that we have less crime, that we have less health disparities, all things that are nonpartisan, as you said. And it truly does invoke this whole ideology around this strategic plan with racial equity and social justice. So I think it's a great discussion. In fact, I think so much so that after budget, we may want to just have another conversation, staff and in CPS, in terms of talking about who the school system is at this point and how it is that strategically we're looking at addressing that and how that then affects MCPS as a whole. I think that would be a great discussion. So let's put a pin in that. To follow up with that piece, I think that would be tremendous, just based on the discussion we've had today. And it, again, even though Councilmember Juwan and I oftentimes joke about this and the millions that are watching at home, the reality is that so many people still haven't heard this discussion. So many people have no idea what our school system is truly about and how many of our folks are truly people of color, all those kinds of things. They don't know. And so having more opportunities for us to continue to make sure that folks are aware that this is who we are, that this is your community, makes perfect sense. So I'd love to see us come back to that as well. So thank you, Councilmember Navarro. Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, back to you.
All right, thank you. That was a wonderfully robust conversation. And I think everything that we've talked about so far, is leading us to this conversation now on the new programmatic expenditures in MCPS's requested budget between racial equity and social justice and the revenue sources and Dr. McKnight's opening comments on the priorities of the school system. You're really seeing that here in the table on page 15, table 11. And so what we wanted to do was to be able to provide, as Chair Rice had mentioned in the beginning, a little bit more information or transparency on what is the requested information. And the Board of Education has done that, and MCPS staff has done that through the Board of Education budget work sessions and presentations, but we wanted to also summarize it here for the council and for the public who are receiving this information through this meeting. And so we've summarized what are the new additions? So we're looking at compensation and benefits. Again, we'll discuss a little bit more on the 29th after the GO committee reviews it. The key positions that Dr. McKnight mentioned for staff development and reading specialists and counseling and pre-kindergarten and security assistants, as well as the key investments that the Board of Education included in their recommended budget at the recommendation of the superintendent for most poverty impacted schools, well-being, safety, and security, digital learning and support, pre-K expansion, community schools, the National Board Certified Teachers salary increases, as well as funding for the new school and additional space in Gaithersburg Elementary School number 8 and Clarksburg Elementary School number 9, and rate changes and other factors, and expenditures related to the state. So MCPS had estimated a slightly higher total increase from the state, and they received a 3.3 million reduction from their estimate compared to the actual. And so they've requested a revenue adjustment to close that gap from their estimate to the actual, in addition to rate increases in the state teacher pension system, and additional funding related to private school pre-K providers. And so I just wanted to highlight some information on that as well, that MCPS had originally estimated around $6.5 million in funds for fiscal year 23, and the state provided a total of 12.5, with the note that around 2.7 million of that will be provided to publicly funded private providers. And so MCPS is requesting that 2.7 in county contribution increase on top of the $3.3 million that they already were higher actuals compared to their estimate. So I just wanted to further define what that was. And so all this conversation and the additions, and what that looks like with the available revenue sources. I already summarized it earlier, but just explaining that in the context, as well as the efforts MCPS has done internally in finding savings for their priorities. And so the table 12 at the bottom of page 16 shows that there was some small savings due to declines in enrollment, around $7.8 million, as well as after their internal review of department and offices, around $2.2 million in realignment savings. And so that typically is like a neutral end point when we look at their budget request, but we just wanted to show that while they've internally allocated it to other expenditures already mentioned in that chart previously in table 11, we just wanted to show that they have found additional realignment savings through their fiscal prudence as well. We have the county executives recommended county contribution increase over the actual FY22. So there were some supplementals this past year, so just increasing the total FY22 amount. The state aid increase of 41.5 compared to last year, as well as we had mentioned that FY23 start of year balance of around $2.2 million remaining from their monthly financial report. As we had discussed, there's also approximately $165 million in ESSER funding available through September 2024. And the next session further describes these revenue sources and tries to paint a picture of showing that the priorities that MCPS has identified align well with the applicable uses of the ESSER funding that remains, as well as the priorities highlighted in the blueprint funding that they've received from the state. And so that's a really great place to be in, as to further show the available resources that MCPS can utilize for their efforts that Dr. Goodnight had mentioned in the beginning. And so we talked about this already through Councilmember Jawando's questions on the ESSER appropriation that they received, and Mr. Riley has mentioned this too. We're going to come back as a committee to further review periodically the ESSER funding and its uses and allocations and available funds. And we highlighted it here too in our council staff packet that MCPS is committed to including stakeholder input in their ESSER funding allocations and constantly reevaluating and monitoring the effectiveness of the programs and services that they're providing through it, and amending it to best meet the needs of the students and the school community throughout the next few calendar years, as well as fiscal years that we do have of remaining ESSER fund dollars. And so at the end of the day, we just wanted to show that there have been significant increases in funding from the county executive's recommended budget and state aid, as well as available funds through federal funding and ESSER, to support the Board of Education's requested priorities and program objectives, recognizing that some fiscal constraints and affordability considerations will require adjustments and prioritization within the scope of the request that we mentioned in the beginning, looking at the county executive's recommendation compared to the Board of Ed's request, as well as that ESSER fiscal cliff that Mr. Riley had mentioned that we're looking at in calendar year 2024, and what that means for the school system in addition to the racial equity efforts and addressing the needs of the school community that we have now, and Dr. McKnight's priorities for supporting the students we have in our school system. All these programs and services and adjustments and changes and reimagining the strategy of MCPS's services and what that will look like in future years, in addition to the our maintenance of effort requirements related to increases in county contribution and per pupil funding, and trying to efficiently meet the needs while maintaining our fiscal sustainability and realities of funding that is available. Now, back to you, Chair Rice.
Well, thank you very much, Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez. And I just want to, close, and I'm going to give an opportunity for my colleagues to make any closing remarks as well if they'd like to. But I just wanted to say that, when I look at what it is that we're looking to do here, it is putting forth sustainable measures that we know are going to continue to meet the needs of our students while addressing some of the concerns that have been before us for a very long time, which is continuing to address and nobody's talked about this and said this for a while, so I'm going to bring this up, and it's going to seem bad, but we still have equity opportunity gaps that continue to exist in our schools. They exist across the nation, right? And it's one in which we were laser focused on that pre-pandemic. And then with pandemic that came upon us, we actually said, well, wait a minute, we've just got to shore up making sure that we can just do the base. We had to do the base. But at the same time, then we also saw, well, wait a minute, those kids that were being affected by the gaps are even more affected by the gaps. So now we've got to shore that up as well. And so then we created these specialized programs that were there that actually we saw were helping to address the gap. And so we said, well, wait, can we use those same programs to address the gap in general moving forward? And maybe that's some of the secret sauce in terms of how we move forward to do this. And that's where we are at this point. We're there in that evaluative period where it's understanding what of these pandemic things that we did to be able to respond to making sure that all of our kids had what they needed, we can continue to do in perpetuity to address those issues that were there pre-existing before COVID and the COVID pandemic. And that's where we find ourselves. And that's what you just heard from Ms. Rodriguez-Hernandez, which is why I love when we have great packets with great people who get it and understand what it is that we're trying to do here. It really is one where, and again, and then at the end, what we also have to do is make sure we can continue to do it, right? So it's not just about that we know it's great, but then we have to have the money to continuously support it and make sure that it doesn't go away and that it's expanded, something that Councilmember Navarro always talks about. If we've got something good and great, we need to expand it as quickly as possible to everybody so that we can not say that in the next 10 years we'll address it, but we can actually get it done in 2 or 3 years because we know what the circumstances surround us waiting are. That's where we find ourselves, which is a really good place. Because there's so many other jurisdictions I know across this country who are nowhere close to where we are right now in terms of what is before us. But at the same time, we never compare ourselves to what's out there. We know what we need and we know what our folks expect. We always expect for us to be a leader, to be one of the best, and so we will continue to make sure that we try and meet that need. The challenge is that understanding that bears a huge responsibility, especially for the people who are going to return when it comes to committing those dollars and making sure that it will always be there for folks is one of the things that I believe is at the forefront of our decision making. And so from that standpoint, I think that we've got a great idea now of how it is that we can try and move this forward to be able to meet this ongoing need that really is rooted in innovation, that's rooted in responsiveness, that's rooted in equity, that is rooted in all the things that we know we need to do for our kids. So with that, let me turn to Councilmember Duando, followed by Councilmember Navarro.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. You summed it up well. I think this was a great overview. As I started when we began, we're facing, unprecedented challenges, but also unprecedented opportunities to approach things differently, to be innovative, to address and fully understand. I think your point, Councilmember Rice, about the millions not really knowing who we are, it's a change that has happened in relatively quick period of time. In my lifetime, 40 years old, it has happened in that period. That we have gone from majority homogeneous community to the community that we are. It's a great thing. But as with the rest of the country, we're grappling with what that means and how do we change and update what we do. And MCPS is half of our budget, is on the vanguard and forefront of that. And it's the top of mind on every resident, on every person, and it should be, because how we educate and prepare the next generation is how we're a testament to what we value, and also who we will be. And our kids need us in a big way, and so we have to step up and meet that challenge. And I know this group understands that. And I've always been clear throughout the pandemic and before, just to say, I never question anyone's desire to do the best for our kids and our families, and it's just about how we get there and what works and what we need to do. And so this budget, I think, as we're working our way through, this is a good start, and we'll get into details over the next several weeks even deeper. But appreciate everyone's work and appreciate the presentation from staff. And of course, my colleagues on my favorite committee, as always. So, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Duando. Councilmember Navarro.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is, I think, a very productive and important conversation. Obviously, MCPS holds a very, very important place in my heart. It is what propelled me into public service, and you also educated my two daughters, who are now these extraordinary Afro-Latina young professionals who are doing amazing things. And so I've seen the extraordinary work, the transitions, all the iterations of so many different initiatives and efforts around strategic plans and all kinds of different things. And it continues to be an extraordinary system. It continues to be a high performance system. It continues to be a system that values continuous improvement and believes in excellence. And I'm always reminded of this one meme I saw once that said that, excellence is not finite because it's not a pie. And it's very true. It is not a pie. It is something that we can continually work to expand and offer to everyone. And I know that this team can do that. So I do look forward to the rest of the budget conversation. But I do think that this is a unique year. This is a unique and very different budget process, because I do believe that this is opening the doors to a new paradigm here in the county, and we need to embrace it, and we need to understand that it is such a historic moment. So yes, there's a lot of pressure in that sense, but also a lot of excitement to reimagine and put forth a different version of what the system can actually be and actually do for all our residents and for the quality of life of our county. So thank you so much, and I look forward to the rest of the sessions.
Thank you. I just want to close by thanking our partners at MCPS, everyone who's been on this call, our council staff, and did want to, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but Council Vice President Glass, did want to acknowledge your presence today. If there's anything you wanted to add, fine. If not, certainly fine as well, but did want to give you an opportunity. All right. Hearing none, let me turn to Dr. McKnight. Did you have anything that you wanted to add to close us out?
Just thank you very much for the conversation today. It was truly delightful. We were able to hopefully bring some transparency to some of our processes of the funding that we have, multiple funding streams that we have coming into the school system. We are hoping that the conversation was able to highlight some of the need that we have and how we want to build the foundation to support those areas of need and how we want to innovate, as each of you said, to rebuild and focus on the MCPS that is here now and deserves and is in, and we'll get a school system that serves the need of every single child in the system. And I just thank you again for your support and asking us those questions again that got to the core of why we're here and why we want to be fiscally responsible and know that our request is going to be the request that addresses all of the very important points that you've raised here today. So thank you for the discussion. I look forward to us continuing this moving forward. And Councilmember Rice, I love the fact that you said we should come back and really talk about how all of these things that we learn about who we are today are being applied to the work that's happening in the system. Because if we're having that conversation on a regular basis as we come together, it's just an addition to the conversation. And it's less of a presentation and more of just an update of what this exciting work and this exciting opportunity is going to provide for us and build for us in Montgomery County. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely, my pleasure. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are adjourned for my council members. I'll see you in a couple hours in person for more public hearings. Thanks so much. We're adjourned. Take care, everybody, and stay safe.
Good morning, Chief Marcus Jones from Montgomery County Police.